Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Friday Special and I'm Faisal Rahman from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about something very interesting, very important, and I think that is something we really need to ponder about and throw light on. That is about the foreign policy challenges at the moment Pakistan is facing. You talk about Pakistan-India relationship, I think this is at its worst at the moment. Every day there is unprovoked firing from the Indian side. You hear about casualties on the border, civilian casualties including children and women. You talk about other threatening posture which India has adopted over a period of time. They try their level best to malign Pakistan at every international forum. They've openly said that they will create a situation where Pakistan is going to get isolated. Whether you talk about Narendra Modi or his cabinet or the Indian military's posture, that is very, very hostile towards Pakistan. And especially after the deal with the Americans in which they'll be sharing intelligence, they'll be sharing their bases, logistic support, they'll be manufacturing a lot of military hardware inside India, and so much more is happening on that particular front, which is going to practically change the balance of power, which Pakistan has always talked about, but obviously the Americans at the moment are totally inclined towards the Indians. The second side is Afghanistan. Obviously, that is the other side of the border, the western border, which used to be safe at one time, is now pretty hostile. You remember about a few days ago, there were 5 soldiers who were martyred by the Afghan forces. 12 of the Pakistani FC soldiers were also injured. And in return, when we retaliated and we fired back, dozens of casualties were also there on their part. But their soil is being used against Pakistan. You talk about the role of NDS, RAW, CIA or Mossad. They're all gearing up to destabilize Pakistan. Whether you talk about Balochistan, you talk about KPK, or you talk about Karachi, things are not that great. And our Chief of Army Staff, General Bajwa, has very categorically mentioned about the hybrid war, which India has in fact started with Pakistan. And this was also the Ajit Doval's point of view, his own ideology about this. Then comes the most important area, and that is about Pakistan and United States of America. If you remember earlier, there were no support on the military front. There was no support regarding the economy. They had stopped the aid to Pakistan. And we very categorically mentioned that we don't want any aid, at least except what Pakistan has done in this war on terror, the kind of sacrifices that Pakistan has made. Practically no other country has done that so far. You talk about more than 75,000 casualties. You talk about $220 billion, $120 billion worth. Some people say it's over 150, but let's put it at $120 billion. That is almost 30% of your total GDP that we have lost during this war on terror. Then you talk about the recent statement by the Americans that they'll put a check on the movement of Pakistani diplomats. So something of prime concern again. But when you talk about the cabinet, Rex Tillerson, he in fact was fired, and the CIA chief, Pompeo, was made the Secretary of State. Pompeo, who was the former head of CIA, was replaced by Ms. Gina, again a very hardliner when you talk about CIA. FBI chief has also resigned because he very categorically mentioned that Mr. Trump is a habitual liar. You talk about the Ministry of Defense or the state, their defense secretary. He is also a former General Mattis. You talk about General Joseph, or you just name it, and you will see their posture. You'll see their kind of attitude towards Pakistan. That's pretty hostile, very aggressive. And now people say the foreign policy is also moving towards, rather there's a shift towards Russia and China. China was always there for you, but when you look at the statements issued by the Americans that China and Russia are the biggest threat, bigger than the war on terror. So that tells the story, that tells the tale, what exactly is happening in the Middle East or elsewhere. We'll be talking about the challenges faced by Pakistan in 2018 and what is the way forward, how aggressive our foreign policy should be, what sort of stability we want in Pakistan, whether we talk about political stability, how important is that, or you talk about vibrant economy, what sort of a value does that hold? these are going to be the major issues. And at today's program, let me introduce you to our panelists. We have with us in our studio on my right is Dr. Mansoor Kundi Sahab, Foreign Affairs expert. Kundi Sahab, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have with us Dr. Shahryar Khan. He's again a known foreign affairs expert, sir. Thank you very much. And we have with us Dr. Abid Abbasi Sahab. He needs to introduction, is also a foreign affairs expert. Thank you very much, Abbasi Sahab. Starting from you, Mr. Kundi, first of all, though major issues which we'll be throwing light on in our today's program I've already mentioned, but let's do a dissection. Let's start off during the first round with Pakistan-India relationship. They're not even ready to talk to us. Forget about cricket, forget about trade, forget about anything. They try their level best. All their agencies, their diaspora living abroad, they all geared up to malign Pakistan, and they make sure that every single forum, whether it's in Geneva or in UK, you heard the statement of Mr. Modi, you talk about United Nations, wherever they go after Pakistan. Half of their speech is practically against Pakistan. So,
actually, it's a tragedy of South Asia, which has made South Asia pretty unstable, that Pakistan and India, since from very beginning, have been having non-endurable relationship. You know, when you talk about bilateralism, the three kinds of bilateralism: endurable, I mean good, like we have with the China, Iran; non-endurable, and then non-interfered. Like Israel, we don't have a diplomatic relationship, we may not be very close, but they're non-interfered. When you share border, you don't have good relationship, they fall under non-endurable. But sometimes relationships are normalized, which is good for region. But for the last many years, since this Modi step in, this is redneck policies, relationship between the two have become quite, I would say, abnormal in international relation point of view, and unfriendly. We have enmity factor, but that enmity factor won't help either of us. Now you see what's going on, as you mentioned in the beginning, on LOC and across the border, and not that I say, international media support that India is showing more aggression there. Pakistan not aggressive as far as the border is concerned. We support Kashmiri's cause, but if you look deeper, for the last many years, Pakistan policy is rather more non-aggressive. Then you see in Afghanistan, India playing all its nasty role there in mudding water for Pakistan. Afghanistan has become now hotbed, and where American in fact have lost the war. Had they won the war, there would have been development, this, that. And Ashraf Ghani has admitted that. But India is trying all its best to make relations strain there. You see across the border how many our troops kill. The main reason is that Pakistan for the last many years is taking care of the border. Border had been soft, one could cross easily, now it's regularized.
Yeah, you need to have proper documents to move in and out.
And we should have. In the wake of such terrorism, where Pakistani troops fighting against terrorists, this is our responsibility in international law, at least to take care of the border from our side. You can't afford to keep this Pak-Afghan-Durand line open as it used to be. So I personally believe that one of the major challenges of Pakistan foreign policy today is strained relation with India, aggressive role, and one thing more I tell you, India itself under pressure on Kashmir under certain issue, particularly Kashmir. You know what was going on in London when their own citizens, Sikhs, talking against them. And international media, international journalism support India, no matter largest democracy, whatever. its role in Kashmir based on very negative attitude and very aggressive.
And look at the recent incidents in which they killed so many innocent, unarmed civilians. It's a legitimate movement, it's an indigenous, homegrown movement, but the way they're trying to suppress it, the way they're trying to take away the right to self-determination, that tells the tale actually.
Actually, they are fighting for, they are struggling for
But unfortunately,
self-determination.
they have related it, but the freedom fighter has become a terrorist in the modern phenomena. That is the most unfortunate part. And when you talk about their media, it's so aggressive, so versatile, I would say, that they can actually make people believe what they want them to believe. So this is the worst part. But coming to you, sir, in your personal opinion, obviously first portion is about India. Indian hostile movement, their approach in Afghanistan, their currently whatever they're doing in Kashmir, just to make sure that, and the moment they'll start firing on the LOC or the working boundary, just to take away the attention from Kashmir cause, and the way they are putting a check on our water, the way they are putting a check on Pakistan's foreign policy, wherever we were connected, they have taken over that domain. Where Saudi Arabia, Iran, Gulf countries, so on and so forth.
Yes.
Even when Narendra Modi goes to Israel, he's welcomed there, that Netanyahu was waiting for him for the last 70 years. So that tells the story that their foreign policy has been very aggressive, very fruitful. Yes. Whereas ours, we never had a foreign minister earlier. Once we had, things were very different. Weak economy is another problem, but at the same time, not a versatile foreign policy is a problem and a half. So
you are right. But if we look at the relationship or the current phase of relationship between India and Pakistan, it actually started before Modi. When we had that dialogue process and it was scuttled because
comprehensive dialogue process.
Yeah. So because of one or two incidents, when Pakistan and India relations or dialogue is always hostage to one accident, happening in India, and then we are back to square one from where we had started, or then we don't talk. And actually, that's the fragility of our relationship. If we could cover that, which we so far, on the both sides, all those, peace-loving people who want the, the dialogue to, to happen and resolve the issues. Actually, that's the problem, that we cannot continue the dialogue. It's hostage, that dialogue, just to one incident. So there are spoilers. But with the current government there, Professor Kundi was right. They're very aggressive. They're not like the past policies. They have taken more aggressive tone toward Pakistan. You have seen that on LOC and internationally as well, because internationally they have been able to brand Pakistan a country, or let's say isolate Pakistan. And one reason of that is their growing national power, their growing market which attracts people there, and the goodwill they generate, all the goodwill that they can generate. And because of that, our story, our Pakistan stance, is not heard, or if it's heard, the people don't pay attention to, because they see most hard economic and strategic interest in India. United States wants it to be, for its Asia pivot policy. It want to try to rebalance China. But India is on its part. They want to, balance China, but not at the dictates of United States, because they have always tried, to put their own national interests first and, get maximum benefit of their relation with different countries. For instance, during the Cold War, they were more close towards Russia. Soviet Union, but today they are to the United States and Europe, but they have not broken any relationship with Russia either. So they do whatever suits their interests. So should Pakistan do. But Pakistan's problem is this: we are lagging in some of the things that we should have, that national power. Strategically, we can counter any attacks or defend our country. But without a sound economy, we cannot, we are not respected then in the world. Since we don't have good economy, so we have to depend on certain countries. In the past, we try to depend on the Western powers. Now we try to shift that or balance that with China end with Russia, but our relationship is not more of interdependence, but more of our dependence, because we always, fill that gap, that deficits in our economy by foreign investment or foreign grants and aids. Until we achieve that, to a level, we reach a level. We have failed, investing in our people, the social capital we are lacking there. So combined all this health, education, it has your national power. So if you don't have that, so unfortunately, then when you enter into a relationship with anyone, then you are more of a dependent nature, and that's why we take, in most cases.
And one more thing, Dr. Saab, which we'll be facing, that recently there was this announcement regarding the blue collar job in Saudi Arabia, that most of the Saudis will do that.
Yeah.
And a similar story I've heard about UAE. Most of our remittances also come from there. So,
yes.
We always, I don't know whether the black money was being converted into white during the era of the former finance minister, because he used to really show that, from 14 to 15 to $16 billion of remittances are coming into Pakistan. But honestly speaking, when you talk, even, okay, let's admit that was the right figure. But if you see a decline of 40% or something of that sort, which you will in the future, but you're not ready at the moment, there's going to be a lot of problems.
And if you look at, we take this to another perspective in our challenges, the challenges that you mentioned, our relation with United States, India and Afghanistan, but there are also challenges for us in our relationship with the Islamic world, because the Islamic world at the moment is divided over conflicts like in Syria, in Yemen, or that Iranian and Saudian rivalry. So they want to drag us into that conflict, that division, and Pakistan cannot afford, to be dragged into that.
And again, India has a strategic defense pact with the Iranians.
Yes,
and they're doing trade with them. They're buying their oil. They're doing the precious metal.
With the Islamic world. The Islamic world has also failed to support Pakistan's stance on Kashmir.
And again, I'll quote Narendra Modi, when he goes to Saudi Arabia, gets the highest civil award.
Yes.
And when he goes to Iran, I mean, he's sharing
they have more trade with
poetry
India
of Mirza Ghalib
more trade, yes.
in Persian with him.
And let me add, like you mentioned in the beginning, that Indian foreign policy is based on more pragmatism, containing opportunism and pertaining to situation. Like Soviet Union had not disintegrated, they recognized Israel and had full diplomatic relation with them. And as you mentioned, with Iran, they have been improving for the last 3-year trade relationship.
Look at the investment they've made in Chabahar, and developing the whole route towards Central Asia and elsewhere up to Europe. Now over to you, sir. Now your take on Pak-India relationship.
Thank you very much. First, I would say that the honorable gentlemen have mentioned already that international relations are based on needs, not on emotions. Unfortunately, we have not been, able to develop our relation on our needs. Strategically, we are holding a very important geography in the region. We have been consistently in an American bloc right from our inception in 1947.
CENTO, CETO, post here?
Obviously, CETO, CENTO, and later, and those, pacts were, even at that time when Americans were not having some sort of very close relation with India, even then they made it sure that we should not use the American aid against India. Keeping in consideration that Indian posture internationally, as Professor Kundi said, that even the Muslim world having close ties with India, and they are not supporting our just cause of Kashmir even, or the others, state of affairs with India. Keeping in consideration the Kashmir issue, I think if we take this responsibility, we should be decent enough that internationally we couldn't sell our narrative, our point of view. That was actually just narrative because it has been proved.
Doctor, do we even have a narrative, by the way?
I'm talking about the narrative of Kashmiris. I'm not talking about the narrative of Pakistan. If we are supporting Kashmiris and Kashmiris are fighting, a just full right of their self-determination that has been given by United Nations Security Council to them. Even then, we could not tell the world in an appropriate manner, in an aggressive manner, or in an effective manner
properly,
that what actually has happened to Kashmiris, by Indian brutal forces, by state sponsored terror used in Kashmir against those unarmed and innocent Kashmiris. We couldn't tell the world whether we failed due to our fragile economic positions. We have been dependent since our inception on big powers for financial and economic matters. And secondly, I think it's very unfortunate, but it is fact that Pakistan couldn't bring all stakeholders on one narrative, as you have questioned the point, the narrative, whether we have or not. We couldn't make an effective, durable, sellable, or convincing narrative regarding Kashmir or regarding Indian atrocities carried on in Kashmir, or whether it's a water issue, or whether in, this very important issue that India has been interfering in Balochistan since last, or the Kulbhushan network you might have, mentioned earlier. That is also a very important thing to be kept in consideration, that India is using every sort of measure which it could from all the three sides on Pakistan. But in response, we are unable even to sell our narrative, our point of view, our fragility, or our, the weakness of the Kashmiris against the Indian atrocities to the globe. So I think it should be, first we should, chalk out a well-considered, well-defined policy, or to tell the world, at least the Islamic world should be. Obviously, the countries are dependent financially on other countries, or big powers having their own interest in the region, and they are maneuvering the support of the countries of the region. If we talk about Middle East, the two big powers are having their own interest and they're fighting for them, and Pakistan is failed to even convince the Muslim world.
Middle East is a land of proxy wars now.
Obviously, these are the proxy wars of the big powers, and we cannot even at least convince the Muslim world about our narrative or about the atrocities of India, not only in Kashmir but in Balochistan and even in Karachi. There were so many.
Gilgit-Baltistan.
In Gilgit-Baltistan, yes, we couldn't tell the world. I think this, our weakness should be kept in our consideration in the decision makers in Pakistan, that how can we tell the people, how can we convince the world that what is being happen in Kashmir, what is actually being happen in Balochistan against Pakistan, what is being happen with the water, the violation of water treaty and other, set patterns of water state. And we should, the only way is to tell the people across the world, the stakeholders, that what actually happened to Pakistan.
A quick comment, so then I'll put a question to you.
And as you mentioned, that we have to come up with our narrative quite clearly, and we have to improve our principles of foreign policy. It's very sad to say, like, we didn't have the foreign minister, and if you compare foreign policy with India, they are playing a good inning on a very good pitch. Relationship between Pakistan and India, unfortunate to me, taken on zero sum. One losses, others gains. And where India gets the upper hand, it leaves no stone unturned to harm Pakistan. And one thing more, since 9/11, which restructure of American relationship with 24 countries, India improved its relationship, became more friendly to India. And since Taliban, the fall of Taliban in Afghanistan, India has permeated its interest.
They have indeed.
There. Okay. Then with Iran, like you were mentioning SCO, it's good that we are improving our relationship with Russia. The world, I wish that the world becomes multilateral, and it's going to be now. It's no more unipolar, but very soon. But when you talk about SCO, India is there.
So is Pakistan, sir.
I mean,
recently you gained the permanent membership.
India willingly, unwillingly, will never leave a bloc once Pakistan.
I mean, you talk about NATO, you talk about United Nations. I think SCO is the most powerful bloc, where you have 4 nuclear states: China, Russia, Pakistan and India. And it's a different bloc altogether. India seems to be the odd one out, but they are gelling in very well.
And I tell you, Pakistan is
an indigenous sort of bloc looking after the interest of the region. keeping in consideration the Americans' interest in the
China,
region.
I mean, this is obviously something to look after the regions, and as they say, the regions grow now, not the individual countries. So now, talking about Afghanistan.
Actually, I tell you, like Ataturk once mentioned, he was asked that Turkey ruling over 3 countries, this is that. In short, he answered, the days of empire are over. We live in the age of nation states. I tell you now, in the age of globalization, we live in the age of regional pacts. And I wish this SCO becomes very strong. America not very comfortable with SCO. But I wish SCO becomes stronger. At least we can bury our many hatchets with India. Because I tell you,
if somebody can play a vital role, a progressive role, an appropriate role in which things could get better between Pakistan and India, I think that's only SCO. That is the only platform. Now, so coming to Afghanistan, good, bad, and ugly relationship. I have failed to understand. I mean, Afghanistan was the first country which opposed the creation of Pakistan, and then there are neighbors. Then there was issue regarding the border. Though Durand line is, I mean, there shouldn't be any issue. But having said that, now the problem is that their soil is being used against us. Their government, when Ashraf Ghani took oath, I remember we all thought, because he paid his first visit to Pakistan, I remember that you know, things will be improving between these 2 countries. And now, after being the president twice, Mr. Karzai says that, well, the problem is actually America. There's a proxy war going on. ISIS is being supported, is being pulled in. He talked about the mystery helicopters over there. He talked about the area controlled by the Afghan Taliban, that is around 70%. And it seems that the civil war going on in Afghanistan is going to get inside our borders. Then there are issues regarding the refugees. So, I mean, so many problems. And their economy cannot sustain more than 6 months, I guess. This is what the former president said. Totally dependent on the US in every aspect. So how can they have their own Afghan-led policy, sir, towards anything?
there is nothing like that, and I wish he had said it before. I don't know, under the pressure of conscience or whatever, he said this, but it's true. It's true. If you make it a narrative, it comes true. Afghanistan is suffering from crisis of legitimacy. Afghan government has failed to establish its own writ, and Taliban have become a force there. America accepts that.
Taliban was always a reality, yeah.
And now they control around 70% area, if it's true. But they control, like Nimroz, Helmand, which links Balochistan closer to Iran, and then they control all important provinces where they claim Afghan
they
government.
They can blow anything and everything, and even in Kunduz in the north, if they want to.
So, and unfortunately now we don't have good relationship with the Taliban. When fire is made across the border, we don't know whether Afghan troops are there, Taliban. But one thing I tell you, that America has made a disaster there, and I agree with Karzai. America is a total failure there. They have brought law and order situation down. They have failed to support
Wherever
Afghan
they have
government.
gone, they have never gone to serve the purpose. They have gone there to kill and to destroy the infrastructure and the economy of that country. You talk about Iraq, you talk about Syria, you talk about Afghanistan, you talk about Cambodia, you talk about
They have
Vietnam.
destabilized.
This goes on
They have
and on.
destabilized Islamic world. In fact, they wanted to get rid.
What do you think? Why did Trump, thought that he should go and visit Saudi Arabia on his first leg, first country? And when you talk about that formation of the Islamic country, so-called that the group where they'll be fighting against terrorism, 3 major countries, Syria, Iran and Iraq, the major sufferers were not even made a part of that. So it's a whether we believe it or not, it's a Sunni group versus the Iranian influence.
Sure, yeah.
Simple as that.
But one thing is good, at least, that Iran has been a stable country. America believes in destabilizing Iran. Iran has, but if you go to Syria and Yemen and Libya, Iraq, they have even sad to say like that, they exist like a nation state, but they have lost the spirit of being a nation state. A nation state should have legitimacy, writ of government and good governance.
In Afghanistan, everything seems to be missing. Moving on to Yusuf, your take on Afghanistan issue.
Well, with Afghanistan, as you mentioned, we have a history of complaints from each other. So if we want to move forward, of course, we have to sit together.
The border clashes wasn't a regular feature, sir.
No. Yes,
it never dared to
in the past when they had a stable government.
One bullet towards Pakistan. Now they do it. Remember what happened
before
Shaman,
that?
One of our major was killed.
Yeah.
Exactly. That attack on the portfolio, on the these polio workers.
Yeah.
And again, this
the border was respected.
Yes.
If you recall, before that Afghan war, there were still, some border clashes when Afghanistan had a semblance of stability. But then, it went to a complete, chaos. Today, they have a government and they have some disputes over the border with Pakistan, and it's settled through that cross-border firing. If we had a mechanism and a trust could develop a permanent, a kind of institutionalized a platform where we could discuss all these disputes, even if it was a border dispute or refugees, and we could discuss it there instead of firing at each other and casualties on the both sides. Probably it could have generated, it could have stop generating that hatred against each other. With Afghanistan, you're right, there is not just one player. There are so many players at play there. They have their own interest in Afghanistan, and Pakistan has its own interest and reservation. But if you look at the media there, the way Pakistan is perceived there, it's in a very negative light, and increasingly we see that anti-Pakistan rhetoric there. What Pakistan could have done, Pakistan hosted 3-4 million refugees for 30-40 years. It could have been your soft power there, but we couldn't translate that into a soft power, probably because of that strategic problems at the governmental level there with the Afghan government. So we squandered that our soft power in the process. Plus, United States, the only point of friction with the United States today is Afghanistan, our policy of Afghanistan and United States policy of Afghanistan. The rest we can have a good relationship with the United States. So our point of friction is Afghanistan because they don't, they blame Pakistan, Pakistan blames them, and there is no kind of connect now between the policies or kind of a convergence on which they can talk. So that's why we see deterioration of relation with the United States. So once your relationship with United States are deteriorated, then it means that Afghanistan and India can also fish in these troubled waters. What Pakistan needs to do, what could be done, to improve the relation, because we as a state cannot live in isolation, and we should not also join the bloc system, because if you join a bloc system, you take benefits from the bloc, but you also share the cost. We already have shared huge cost of the bloc system.
Interestingly, we haven't had those benefits either.
Yeah, the benefits, the cost outweighs the benefits. So I'm a bit reluctant for pushing Pakistan to join a bloc. What I would like, to do Pakistan, I would agree on that with Professor Kundi, to be multilateral in its approach. Instead of joining one bloc or the other bloc, Pakistan should strike a balance when it inculcates its relationship with China or Russia. Russian bloc is becoming, we should not go into the bloc of that. We should have good relations with them, and we can do it. Since the world is not like that, a strict, bipolar in the Cold War, and even unipolarity is losing its grips.
The Russian
grips.
foreign minister says that the current relationship between the United States of America and Russia is worse than the era of the
Cold
Cold
War.
War.
Yeah.
So this is something-
Unipolarity also it's losing its grip on the world. So we have an opportunity. Countries like Pakistan, they can diversify their foreign policy and they can have relationship with other powers
You
as
have
well.
to, this is the way forward. I mean, make less enemies, make more friends. So your take on this particular one.
Obviously, we understand the role of United States in Afghanistan, and we should understand the Indian interest in Afghanistan and the, the penetration of India in Afghanistan for the sake of bringing some sort of lesser space for Pakistan in Afghanistan. We have been, very traditional relations with Afghanistan. We have been having our stakes in Afghanistan since long, and we all know that in Afghan war against Russia, we have played a role, whether it was a positive role or whether it was a totally negative role. But keeping in consideration our relations
According
with
to
Afghanistan,
Ziaul, he said that the Afghan Mujahideen and the Afghan people were fighting Pakistan's war.
Yeah.
Because if they lose, we'll lose, and they'll come and Pakistan's number is next.
but there are so many aspects of that war in Afghanistan. Our leadership now confessing that we played an overly, involvement
Even
in
post
Afghanistan.
9/11 in 2001, when the Americans attacked Afghanistan,
Yeah.
we could have, negotiated it well.
Bargained well,
Yeah.
Bargained.
But
yeah.
bargain value is obviously of those nations. They have some economic strength. They have some sort of, internationally convincing powers to the rest of the world. And in Afghanistan, we should keep in consideration that America is the key player. What the Afghan government is, having its narrative, that narrative is actually of United States narrative, because Ashraf Ghani's government is nowhere out of Kabul. About 70%, as you mentioned, that Taliban's are holding Afghanistan, and other key players working in Afghanistan having some sort of pro-US posture, if we talk particularly about India. So, if on one side, on our eastern border, we're having very tense relation with India, India's atrocities, India is just deliberately putting pressure from both the sides. And, they are maneuvering their interest so smartly. And as compared to India, we couldn't understand even the problems coming to us, the challenges coming to us, and we couldn't, even understand them in past. But keeping an Afghan relation, I think we should, unless a stable Afghanistan develops, unless, a stable Afghanistan, Pakistan cannot serve its interest in the region.
Absolutely.
This is something very clear.
Absolutely. Last 6
and
minutes.
Pakistan should take more initiatives. Pakistan should convince the stakeholders in a more appropriate manner to bring peace in Afghanistan, whether through negotiation,
whether through,
other means, but it should be kept in consideration that without a solid, without a, peaceful Afghanistan, Pakistan cannot serve its interest in the region.
Absolutely, sir. If there is a problem in your neighborhood, you'll feel the heat. Simple as that. Now, sir, last 6 minutes, 2 minutes for each gentleman. Regarding Pakistan-USA, worst ever relationship at this point of time. Whether it's Trump or whosoever is in power, sir, as they say, that Donald Duck and Mickey, they're ruling the US. I mean, that's funny. But at the end of the day, whether he is into prostitutes, he is into all sorts of wrongdoings, whether he is a habitual liar,
a non-serious attitude,
or a non-serious, or a cartoon for that matter. At the end of the day, that man with that white yellow hair is the President of the United States of America.
In the last leg of our discussion, I can say few words that we must as a nation admit that we have made foreign policy mistakes.
Yes.
Like Mushtaq Ahmed says, by joining CETO-CENTO, Pakistan jumped from qualified neutrality to unnatural alliances. Anyhow, past is past. We can learn only lessons from past. We should restructure our relationship with America. We need good relation with America, but should not take dictation. Now America has never been our friend. It has been mostly as a master.
Look at the kind of relationship Iran is having with USA, or Turkey is having with USA, or even Pakistan is having with USA. What alliances? It's all about your interest or their interest.
And I tell you, Pakistan is needed. America needs Pakistan in Afghanistan and in the region. America can never...
Don't you think the Americans believe that our role or authority doesn't exist much there in that part of the world, in Afghanistan?
Yeah, but I tell you honestly that on Pakistan we have to play our inning. We should restructure and we should not get dictation here, number one. And number two, that like one phrase we learned each day, do more, do more. Pakistan has already done much. If it does more, won't be good for its interest. Because in foreign relations, national interest comes first. Sometimes you can sacrifice your national interest, but for a bigger cause, for a larger ideological interest, not for patriotism.
Sir, if I may ask you, is Pakistan a friend of USA or USA is a friend of Pakistan? What would you say?
Pakistan self-pretended more as a friend of America. America,
they say that
we have
always
done,
played double games
honestly,
with them. They do not
if you
trust
look
you.
into 70-year history, like Cook's, Dennis Cooks has written his book, Pakistan has done much for America. America has done nothing for us. It was a core, we were periphery. If you look into that, it could do more for us because it was core.
Quick comment, sir. Quick comment, sir.
Well, I believe maybe that if you want to restructure your foreign policy, that depends a lot on your domestic politics or domestic policy.
That is a reflection of foreign policy.
It's a reflection of that. And foreign policy always reflects national interest. Foreign policy can be changed. It can be altered. It can be transformed. We see from United States, they keep changing their foreign policy. We can also do that. We have to see if there is a problem in our foreign policy, we need to introspection or the mistakes that we have made. If we can correct that, we need working, functional relationship with all the countries,
including United States of America. Sir,
keeping in consideration Professor Kundi's point of view that Pakistan need to have relation with the United States, but these relationships should not be at the cost of our own interest. Yes. Particularly, we are very much enthusiastic about the CPAC coming in, or we need to develop relations with China, obviously on the basis of our own interest in the region. But even our relationship with China must not be on the cost of our relations with America.
You have to keep a balance.
We have to keep a balance. Only that can be the way out for Pakistan.
All right. Kundi sir, thank you very much. Dr. Sir, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you, Abbasi. And that's all we have for this moment. I'll see you, inshallah, again next week. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Have a great weekend. Khuda Hafiz.